Hello everybody, my name's Aubrey and I'm an opera singer and a voice coach. I'm really excited because today we're going to take a peek at those high Fs in De Hille Rache, which is an aria sung by the Queen of the Night in the Magic Flute. It's really famous, and as a result we're going to actually use this as an opportunity to discuss all the different ways that these professional singers attack this piece. It's super tricky, but there's many different techniques to make this a little bit easier. This title is a little bit clickbaity because I'm not actually going to tell you who did it best. The answer is all of them did great, and the preferences are going to land on the listener. Everybody's going to have a different opinion at the end of this, so feel free to describe who you think is best in the comments down below and why. That way we can start practicing using words to describe different techniques that we're hearing, and I think it also just helps us to be more critical listeners. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into this and talk about those high Fs. Amazing. Let's talk about this one first. She's clearly listening to those requirements that her body is asking for in order to hit that pitch. Really tricky, very open, a lot of pure ah that you're hearing. Listen to that coloratura ornament every time. It's so clean. That high F, so crisp, so clear. We love to see it. It also sounds like it blends really nicely with the previous and the following content, making it a really seamless performance. That one's really fun. She sounds almost crazed with it, which is a very different characterization than we just saw. I also really like that the characters around her are just experiencing so much pain from those high pitches. Honestly, that makes a lot of sense. Also, did you notice her space too? We're seeing another singer, lots and lots of space. That really helps up there because without it, it's kind of hard to resonate nicely. Additionally, I find that if I don't open in this same spot, I'm going to get that sound stuck right in my throat, which is just not going to help. Notice also that her vibrato is really shimmery, very fast. It's a different kind of sound that we're getting. Overall, really cool performance. So notice how her coloratura sections have a little bit more H in there. Ha 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 ha, instead of ah ha ha ha, which is just a personal preference. I also just want to point out how grounded she is. She's very solid. She's given herself a great physical base from which to sing. Her color on that F is also very clear, very pingy, like a bell. This one's super cool because it's so much slower than the other stuff that we've seen. I don't know if that makes it harder or easier. I think I might lean towards it being a little bit trickier because there's an element of sustained pitches here that we don't necessarily have to do if the song is moving a little faster. Her vibrato is also really shimmery. It's so full and rich. And also take note of how similar the colors are in the lower sections of this piece. along with that high note. It sounds very, very uniform from top to bottom. What's also really interesting is that taffy pulling effect that she's getting with the tempo almost makes it sound more sinister than it does vengeful. So another example of different characterization simply based on using different techniques. Very different performance of this one too. Almost stoic sounding, cold, aggressive, but still so clear. What's also really cool is we can see a lot more in this video simply because it's a bit more of a close-up on her mouth. Notice how she actually closes a little bit at some points, but then she still opens up on the high F. I think that we're gonna see that consistently throughout every performance. It's so floaty and light, and she has a nice color on that F, but what's interesting is she pulls back a little bit, and I don't know if I would personally do that because it's just adding additional strain to the musculature here, which might end up making that F a little bit harder to reach for some people, but clearly not for her. She really made that F not sound as high as it actually is. So that was really fun. I really loved the connection and the continuity across the ornaments, as well as how spinny and floaty it is. Super nicely sung. The characterization is so different here. The staccati are actually kind of used as almost like anxiety or stress or absolute overwhelming frustration. Super, super different the way she's presenting this. There's also a lot going on in this performance on stage. Very, very acting heavy. So that's something I feel like I don't really see in opera as much. There's a lot of traditions of like the stand and sing. So I'm kind of interested in being able to see this like extra level of movement. The one thing I always worry is if you're moving so much, are you going to have the right kind of support for that high F? In this case, obviously she does, but for those of us who are learning, always keep in mind how much we move. It could end up coming back to get us later. This is a lot heavier of a voice, isn't it? There's a lot more velvety richness happening here, whereas I'm used to hearing a flute-like shimmery color, which we've talked about before. And I think what's really beautiful about it is it's so pulled and connected across all the notes that it ends up being almost like a custard or a cream. The florid passages are super well supported, although I will notice there's a tiny little pause before the F, so maybe she's setting up for it a little bit, since it feels probably pretty different compared to the rest of her voice, but overall, gorgeous. Wow, the vibrato is super wide and kind of slow here. It kind of almost creates a sensation of slow-mo, making it feel almost unearthly. Very interesting. The other thing that I like is that F comes out of the texture. Notice that mouth shape, a lot wider than the average stuff that's happening in the beginning and the end of the piece. So she needs that space in order to get that F. It's kind of funny how everybody so far has been doing something very, very different, but that F seems to be done very similarly each time. That's a big voice too. So intense. Do you feel it? It's so angry almost, but not just anger. It's also that revenge that so deeply characterizes this piece. The F is absolutely stunningly connected to the rest of the piece. So much openness across the entirety of this particular passage, which I find really cool. I really also like the variety of what she's doing with her face here. It provides a lot to think about as the audience while we're listening to this piece go on. Despite it being almost inflamed with rage, I greatly enjoyed listening to it because it was still really pretty. Here's another singer with a bit wider of a vibrato, along with a very, very light high F. It's like this very, very magical thing, like a puff of smoke that just vanishes into the ether. And as you can see, every one of these singers sang it so differently. We're being given the same sheet music and oftentimes being told very similar things about the character herself, and we all end up with a different final product. I think that is one of my favorite elements about making music and singing, is just the freedom at which we have to interpret things. Although I sometimes feel like we are pressured to follow tradition, I want to encourage every one of us to always think about different techniques, different characterizations, different emotions with our face. All of these things can come together and help us create a completely new take on a traditional character. There have been so many people who have sung this aria before, and there will be so many more in the future. So we always want to ask ourselves, what are we personally bringing to this character that's unique and special, that only we can do? It's kind of hard sometimes to isolate that, but I hope that it's a little bit of a thinking challenge for all of you, because I definitely like to consider it every time I'm singing something. And with that, I really hope to hear who you guys think was the best and why down below, just so we can practice writing about the voice and thinking about the voice. Doing little exercises like this is one of my personal favorite ways to practice identifying what I really love about my own voice as well. So make sure you give it a try. If you're interested in learning more about taking lessons with me, just know that I sponsor my own videos with my studio, which can be found down in the comment section below. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, as always, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. And remember, keep on singing.